This picture here is a picture I took off of the Games Workshop website. When I searched under the Space Marine Thunderfire Cannon, this is a picture that came up. This is the picture that I'm going to use as my template. This is the color scheme I'm going to try to match. I'll make a few variations for my liking in my army, but this is the picture that I'm going to be using in the background, so I can check out every once in a while, so I can get some ideas from. What I have here is the Space Marines Thunderfire Cannon. This was a resin kit that I wanted for quite some time. When I was ready to buy it, the Games Workshop website didn't have it available any longer. So I put on the notification for them to email me when they came back into stock. And about a month ago, it did. Maybe a little bit more than a month ago, it did. So what I did was I ordered it from the Citadel's or Games Workshop's website, and it came in, and I put it together recently and primed it all black. This was a fine cast resin kit. So just put it all together. I primed it black, and on this episode or this video, I'm going to go ahead and paint this thing up. If you notice, there's still a few pieces or parts here that I need to touch up with a little black, which I will do with some black paint. And then what I'll do is I'm going to paint this up in the Ultramarines color scheme. Okay, so I'm back here at the paint table. I went ahead and touched up all these pieces with a little Abaddon black. Some of the spots that I was kind of pointing out, just so I can make sure that there's no obvious prime chips or prime spots that I missed. So what I'm going to do here is going to be a two-step base process. I'm going to go ahead and be base coating lead belcher and McCrag blue. And what I'm going to do is, for the lead belcher, I'm going to hit all these tracks, a lot of these mechanical arms, the gears in here. I'll be taking care of all these like servo arms with the lead belcher on here, and then I'm going to, on the cannon itself, I'm going to go ahead and put some lead belcher on all the mechanical parts, the housing here and things like that. With the McCrag blue, I'm going to throw down all over his armor of the Tech Marine. Make sure I get a good base coat for the armor here for the Ultramarines, and I'm also going to go ahead and do a base coat of the McCrag blue on this backpack part right here. That will be part of his armor, and then we'll go from there. So when I'm doing the base coat of the lead belcher, what I'm going to do is I'm going to use my paint palette tray with these wells here. I think it's a little better for when I'm painting a large area, so I can get a nice good amount of the paints readily available. I'm going to be thinning it down. This DIY paint thinner. It's really some matte medium water and a little touch of dish soap for to kind of have it that flow improvement property. So very simple. I did 50-50 of the matte medium and water, and like I said, just a dash of the dish detergent. Alright, so what I'm going to do to get started here is I'm going to put some lead belcher in the palette. I already gave this a good shake, so it should be pretty mixed. What I want to do is just get a good amount in here just to start off, and I'm going to go ahead and mix that flow improver. Just going to give one drop of this just to give it a good mix, so we have some good consistency. And like I said, I'm going to start with a base coat on the tracks here, so I'm going to give it pretty much all over these tracks here. Just kind of get it on a nice smooth even layer here. So I'm going to do the tracks. I'm going to do a little bit pretty much all on these gears, all over the gears, inside, on the front side, the back side. Just get on the gears. I'm going to try to stay away from this housing here because I'm going to do a dry brush with that after. So I'm going to do pretty much all these gears on the inside of the track. And I'm also going to do these servo, or I don't know, these clamps or leveling feet, whatever we want to call them. That's going to get a good base coat of the lead belcher as well. Alright, so I'm going to go ahead and do all of those. That's for the tracks there. Now for the servo arms here, like I said earlier, what I'm going to do is pretty much just kind of keep it to the arms for the lead belcher. Okay, so I'm going to do all the arms here. I'll probably do these wires a little different color, and then these clamps here are going to be a different color, as well as like the missiles itself. But I'm going to go ahead and do a coat of lead belcher all over the arms. So just a good barometer of what I'm doing here. So I'll do those on all sides. And canning itself, what I'm going to do here is these, we'll call it the stanchions here. I'm going to do all that for lead belcher, and I'm going to try to keep it very neat here, because these plates are going to be a different color. I'm probably going to do the Ultramarines blue for those plates, and as well as the plate up top here. I'm also going to try to pick out these little rings on around in these arms. That's all going to get a base coat of lead belcher. Anything I miss up, so I could touch it up there, I messed up right around there. I'm going to give it a coat of black again to clean it all up. So I'm going to go ahead around and take care of all of these metal bits with the lead belcher, and we'll come back later. Okay, so I have all the lead belcher pieces done. As you see, I went ahead and did all of the parts that I was mentioning in this lead belcher. I know you see there's some overhang here, some mistakes here, but I think I'm going to be covering that up, because the next step I'm going to be doing is a heavy dry brush with the lead belcher just on the black spots here, along with the track, the lead belcher tracks and these little stands here. From this base, I went ahead and did the lead belcher bits on the cannon itself, pretty much around the cannon barrel, some of the base stanchions, and some other little pieces of that I liked, or I thought would probably be best with the lead belcher. I left the rest black. I'll also be doing the heavy dry brush on this base here, like I'm going to do here. I also did the servo arms of the backpack that I mentioned I was going to do all in lead belcher. And then I'll be cleaning that up with some other base colors around the guns and the flamer here and the missiles and things like that. So next we're going to be doing that dry brush. I'm going to be using this makeup brush. I've come to find out that this is an awesome dry brush to utilize. Watching some videos, some recommendations, and then trying it out myself a few times. I really enjoy this. So I'm going to go ahead and do a dry brush. So I'm going to get a little bit on the brush itself, use a piece of tissue, get a bunch of it off. I don't want to get too much off, because I want to do a heavy dry brush here. So I'm just going to go ahead and do that on this base here, just going back and forth, left and right, up and down, you name it. And I'm just going to be hitting pretty much all of the black part here. And that's exactly, if you can see that, that's exactly what I kind of want to have it look like. A good effect of some weathering, some scrapage, and things like that. So I'm going to go ahead, just keep going pretty hard with this dry brush on this black base here. But yeah, that's definitely what I'm looking for. If you get a good look at that, but that's exactly what I'm looking for that base. So I'm just going to get a little bit more on the brush, and then get a little bit more off with a piece of towel or tissue, and then do the same with this base here. I want to get a nice heavy dry brush on that base. Try to get in there on some of those pieces right inside there. Get a nice little edge highlight with that dry brush. definitely wanted to match that because that's where it's going to be going. I think we're pretty much there, so I think that's exactly what I'm wanting to do. Alright, so that came out really good. I like that dry brush, nice, quick, and easy. Next thing I'll be doing is the McCrag blue on some of these plates here, and then the Tech Marine itself. So for the Tech Marine, I'm going to get a nice solid coat on the whole Marine. I'm not going to worry about not hitting certain aspects, because what I'm going to do is I'll paint over that and to touch up that blue. I'm really going to just try to get a nice coat on all of the armor pieces, and then pick out some of the details with the other colors later on, like some of these wires hanging down and the emblems and insignias and this Auspex reader. So McCrag blue is going to go all over this guy. I'm also going to put McCrag blue on the cannon, on these armor plates on both sides, and then on the top here I'll do all McCrag blue. I think that's all I'll do for McCrag blue on this thing. I'll see what it looks like when I'm done. Maybe I'll pick out something else, I'm not sure, but that will be McCrag blue on that. And then here on the backpack I'll do all of this McCrag blue, and the front and the back, and then this little top thing I'll just use the McCrag blue for like the housing part of it. And then I'll try to be as neat as possible on this one, and then try to pick out later on the wires and some other bits. Maybe I'll do like a dark gray or something like that. Alright, so McCrag blue is next. So I already gave this a good shake. I do want to get a good amount of the blue. Alright, so I'm just going to go ahead and get a good amount on my brush, not too much. And then I'm just really just going to try to get it pretty much all over this guy. And this might be something that I might have to do two thin coats, right? That's the term, 2 thin coats. So really, I'm really just trying to get this into all the spots possible in the recesses here, and then I'll touch up over that on the wires and what have you. So definitely going to try to get inside all of these nooks and crannies with the first coat, and then I'll have to do another thin coat on top of that so you can kind of see the black is kind of showing through there a little bit. Alright, so I'll go ahead and go around with that on him. Like I said, on this guy, you know, I think I'm just going to kind of just worry about these armor plates first. Let that dry after a couple coats and see what it looks like, and then go from there. I'm using a large base brush for those pieces, those parts. For this, I'm going to go ahead and switch down maybe to a small base or a medium layer brush or something like that. But all right, I'll go ahead and get that going for the McCrag blue coat, and we'll see what it looks like after it dries. Now I have 2 coats of the McCrag blue down on the armory panels of the cannon, and then I did 2 coats on the Tech Marine also of the McCrag blue, and I've also did the backpack with the McCrag blue both sides. So what I'm going to do now is I think what I'm going to do, I should say, is I'm going to go ahead and use this Vallejo basalt gray, and I'm going to start picking out all of the wires, all the cabling, all the wires, and some of the, I guess, the casings on some of the guns around the missiles. I'm going to do all of that dark gray, and then on the cannon I might pick out just some of these little bits, these little nubs with the gray. I'll go around and maybe pick out a few things here. I'll do the cabling here with that gray, and then on the Tech Marine, what I'll do is I'll do all the cabling gray all through them on the front and back, around his arm, and I'm going to go ahead and do this chest piece, the insignia here, I'm going to do that all in gray, and maybe part of the cabling on his helmet there. It's hard to see there, but some of the cabling there around his helmet, on his chest, and then all the cabling here in his front and on the back. I'm going to do that gray. After that gray's done, I'm going to go back, I think, and do little Iron Warriors as like a highlight on on some of the cables. All right, so that will be the next step. Okay, so on to the basalt gray here. I went ahead and put it inside the palette. I used some more of my DIY diluting agent, gave it a good mix. One thing I just want to note too is when I use the brushes, no matter if it's like mixing it up with like a like water or something like that, or a medium, I want to make sure I always wash my brush off, because I don't want the paint to get up towards the ferrule of the brush. That's where all the problems kind of start. So I'm going to go ahead and use this gray here. Just put a little bit on the brush, and I'm going to start picking out all of these cables with this gray. I want to get a nice coat, cover up any of the lead belcher mistakes that I made when I was doing the arms, and just go ahead and get that all evenly on all the cabling. So there, all these cables here coming down, I want to make sure I hit those all along all the arms, and then the ones on the back here, I want to make sure I try to get a nice base on all the cabling there, and any of the components from the cabling on the back here, and then of course, like I mentioned, on the Marine himself, I'm going to go ahead and get a nice base coat of this gray all over his cables here, on the front here, and all along the back here. And then possibly just pick out these nubs just a little bit here, just to give it a little definition that you know there's some type of variation here. All right, so I'm going to go ahead and do that with all this gray and see what it looks like when I'm done. If you notice too, on his chest area, I used a darker color. This color I did a little DIY mix here in one of these shaker bottles. I did Vallejo black and Vallejo gunmetal in equal parts, and then I had a couple drops of lead belcher, and I shook this up, and I like the color it kind of gives, with a little hint of a little shine to it. So I did the front emblem, his chest piece, and a little around the front of the collar there with that color. I also went around the ends of all the cables here with Iron Warriors base color. So I went and picked those all out, and on the backpack weaponry, I took care of the cabling there, and used a little of the Iron Warriors around the cable ends as well. I put a little of that black on that insignia and inside the vents of that top there. I also touched up some black spots around the whole model, just to clean up a few spots, you know, make it as neat as possible for the next step. Which the next step is the red. So I'm going to go ahead and use Mephiston red to pick out the housings of all the weapons. All right, here and on here, and then around the missiles on that claw there. And I'm also going to go ahead and do the red on the Marine's helmet, and then his shoulder pads, and I'll pick out, you know, the crest, the wax seals here, and around, maybe around the kneecap. All right, so that's the next step, the red. Okay, so I got the red in my palette here, and I watered it down with that DIY solution. So we're ready to go. So at this point here, I'm really just going to be looking to pick out the housings on each of the weapon arms. I'm using a medium layer brush for this one because I really want to try to be as neat as I possibly can. Knowing myself, and I'm still learning the process and how to paint the best or the best I can. I know I'm going to be making some mistakes, so I do plan on tidying up after. But with that said, I am still going to try to be as neat as possible. So I will go around this weapon, or this backpack, so to speak, and get all the red bits. I'm going to be picking out all of the weapon housings on all the arms and going from there. So I'll go right and do that. Also, I will be on the Marine itself here. I'm going to be picking out this shoulder pad with red, trying to be as neat as possible. For the logo in the middle, I'll try to avoid it as best I can, but if I get hit it with the red paint, it's not the end of the world. I'm going to be going over with the darker color, and then it should clean that up pretty good. So the shoulder pad, and then the helmet, all over his helmet here. The goal is to get all that red. So the helmet, the shoulder pad, and then the wax seals here. I'll be picking out with the red as well. I think I'm going to hit a little bit of this knee too. Alright, so I'm going to go ahead and do all these red pieces, and then we'll see what it looks like when it all dries. I finished up with the Mephiston red on all the bits that I was talking about. The Tech Marine, the Purity Seals, the knee pad, the helmet, and the shoulder pad there. I also, of course, made a few mistakes, so I went back and touched up with a little of the basalt gray. And the Tech Marine should be all set with all the red, just like in a few minutes ago I was saying. Just touched up a lot of the places that I messed up, but I finished the servo arm weapons with the red on the gun casings and the arms and things like that. Still a few mistakes that I made there, but that's going to be touched up once I get to the blue for that plasma, the plasma weapon. So that should be all set. I also did a couple of the lenses on the front of the cannon with that red. The next step is going to be several different colors in small spots, right? So I'll kind of run through the paints that I'm going to use and where I'm going to use them kind of fairly quickly. And what I'll do is I'm going to go ahead and take care of that off camera because there'll be a lot of small little pieces, so I'm sure you don't want to see going through them all, and I'll show you what the end result is after. Alright, so first I'm going to use the Shopty Bone for the parchment of the Purity Seals. I think that's the only place I'm going to use this Shopty Bone, so that will be the first one. The next one is going to be the Warp Lock Bronze. I'm going to go ahead and use that on the flamer, metal bits of the flamer. So, right in front here, and maybe the canister, that will be the Warp Lock Bronze. Next will be Lauren Forest. My plan with this one is going to be the eye lenses, and then the screen of this Auspex, and then possibly maybe the little lens of that little light in the front. Next is going to be Skaven Blight Dinge. That's going to be the outline of this right shoulder pad and that skull. I'll also probably base coat the whole Auspex in this color here. See what it looks like. I'm kind of looking for a darker gray. I might even mix this with a little black for the Auspex at least. And then Balthasar Gold, Ultramarines company. This is pretty much what I do. All my Ultramarines is they're off color. So I'll do his left shoulder pad outline with that Balthasar gray. And I'll probably pick out a few of the mini skulls with this color too on the front of the cannon there. And then possibly, I think there's one somewhere. There it is, on this arm there. And I'll throw in gray. I'm going to go ahead and use this one for the half of the skulls on this guy, on the side of the cannons, as well as the insignia here. I'll do in the Ulthuan gray. So those are the what was it, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6 paints that I'm going to be using right now. So I'm going to go ahead and take care of all of these little bits with these different colors, and then we'll come back and see what they look like. So all those ancillary paints are all done. I'll kind of show off what I've done here on this one. I did some of the warp lock bronze here on that. And then I did a little of the green in the front there with the little insignias all done and set to go. And then the Tech Marine. I think he came out pretty good. I like everything that came out there. He's pretty much close for a wash for one of the next steps, but we'll get to that in a second here. So he's pretty much all done with all the paints there that I was mentioning. So the next thing I'm going to do here is work on the plasma gun here. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to start with a base coat of the Celestra Gray on all the coils, just to get a foundation going, and that will pretty much neaten up any imperfections and things like that. And then I'm going to go on a base coat of White Scar on top of that Celestra Gray, just to kind of make the next paint kind of pop a little bit more. That's what that White Scar is going to be for. And that next paint is going to be the Hex Wraith Flame. This is a technical paint, so on top of that white, it's going to look really good. Like I'm hoping that it's going to have like a nice green glowing effect. So that will be that last part on top of that White Scar. That's going to be on top of the gray. And then once this dries, I'll do a very, very light dry brush back with the white, just on, you know, the raised corners of that coil, just to kind of give it that finishing touch. So that's the next thing I'm going to do. So once I get that all set and that Hex Wraith Flame is all dry, I'll come back here so you guys can see what it looks like. Okay, the plasma gun is all done. I think it came out pretty good. It did kind of, I'm looking at it now, and I do kind of see a little bit of imperfection. I think it has something to do with the resin for this, but this is exactly the effect I was kind of going for, was kind of a green glow effect for the plasma gun, and I think it came out great. So next thing I want to do is I'm going to set up for the washes. So what I'm going to do here is I'm going to glue this guy here, glue this whole backpack contraption on the Marine here, get him all situated, make sure it dries pretty good. I'm going to be using this Loctite super glue gel control to make sure it's going to stick on there. So with the resin and the paint on top of it, I want to make sure I have a nice good connection or seal, so to speak. So I'll be using that to get this backpack on him. I'm going to give that some time to dry, and then after that I'm going to do some washes, and I'm mostly going to use like a black wash, but 2 variations of it, so that'll be the next step. So for those 2 black washes, I'm going to be using this Testors acrylic wash. I like this for like a grimy, grungy, oily effect, and I'm going to be using just this wash on the tracks, just pretty much on the tracks and the gears inside here. Yeah, I think that's the only place I'm going to be using this one. I like it just because I mean, it has like a nice dirty, grungy effect, an oily effect after it dries, so that's good for the tracks. And then I'll be using Nuln Oil for every other spot on this model. Alright, so I have these pieces, these sub-assemblies all glued together. I went ahead and put the cannon on the tracks and have that all glued down. I think it came out pretty good. Pre-wash, I'm pretty happy with that. And then the Tech Marine and his little backpack contraption. That's all attached now, and it looks pretty good, ready for a wash. One thing I remembered, I almost forgot, is some water transfers or some decals. What I want to do is I want to put some on. So I'm going to do that before the wash, because I want to wash over the decals, so it does give it like that weathered effect too. So I'm going to put the Ultramarines insignia on each side of the cannon, and possibly on his shoulder pad. I typically do on the left shoulder pads, so I might still do it here on this guy, and then I might do another decal somewhere on here. I'm thinking maybe, let's see if we can pull this up a little bit. You can see that maybe like one of these stripes here. I'll just cut it off and maybe go kind of right on the top here. I think that might be pretty cool. I might take a look at it when I cut it out and just kind of dry fit it almost and see what it looks like. But yeah, I'm gonna definitely try. I'm gonna definitely put the Ultramarines insignia on both sides. So I think what I'm gonna do is I'm gonna go ahead and get one started. I'm gonna do one of them on camera and just to show you a quick way that I do it. I do have a few different methods to do it, using some other like solutions to soften up the decal and everything like that, but typically the easy way that I do it is just like this. So I'm gonna go ahead and cut this one out. Did I go on that? It's hard to tell with the camera in the way. Yeah, I kind of did, but I think we're gonna be good because it's gonna be more of like a effect possibly of some warfare, you know, some damage taken, so that's fine. So typically what I would do is I would cut it out as close as I can around the actual decal. Let's see if I can zoom in there a little bit, like that. And then what I want to do is I'll just take some water and I'll just give it a couple good drops. We're gonna let it sit there, I don't know, maybe about 30 seconds or so. Make sure it's nice and wet, and after a little bit it's just gonna start sliding off. Then I'll show you that in a minute. But what I also like to do is on the model itself where I want to put it, I just kind of give it a little water or a little base coat of water, kind of right where I want to put it, so that stays nice and moist as well. Alright, looks like it's starting to slide off right now. So once it kind of gets off, we just slowly and gently pick it up on my brush and just kind of lay it right on. And it's still wet, so it's going to slide around very easily on here. So I just really want to kind of get it in the position I want it, centered and like that. I think that looks pretty good on that side. I'll try to get it around the same side, the same place on the opposite side here. But I think that's pretty good. So at this point, you know, I just kind of want to get it as dry as possible. So what I'll do is I'll dry the brush off, and I'll try to just maybe soak up some of the water around it, and just pretty much let it air dry itself, you know. And then it should just kind of stay in place when it's completely dry. All right, decals are all on. I think they're perfect for what this is gonna look like in the end. I did put that little stripe down the side there, or on the top of that little lighting. We're all set with those Ultramarine badges on both sides of that housing. Pretty good, and I did put a little Ultramarines sigil there on his shoulder pad. Alright, so these guys are good to go. Next step is the washes. Like I said, I'm going to be using this Testors black wash for the tracks. I think that's what I'll do next. That's going to take the longest to dry, so I'll hit the tracks and these gears on the inside with this Testors. And then I'm going to go over the rest of the model, the entire model, with a little Nuln oil. And I'm going to let that dry. At this point, I have the model pretty much completed. It has been shaded, and all the shade is now dry on both the Marine and the cannon itself. I don't know if you can kind of see that variation from the tracks, what I was telling you about that Testors black wash. It gives it a little more oily effect, grunge effect, so to speak, compared to, we'll say, like these bits here on the arms, because that would just be the Nuln oil. But yeah, so everything's pretty much had the wash now. It's ready for some highlights. So the highlight colors that I'm going to be using, I'm going to kind of keep it low key. I'm going to be using Calgar blue for the blue armor plates for a highlight. I'll be using Stormhost silver for a few metal bits, mostly maybe the inside of the tracks. That's really about it. And then Eshin gray for black bits. I'll keep that pretty minimal as well. And then just a touch of the Evil Sun Scarlet for some of the red highlights. So that's what I'm going to do. I'm going to get started with the highlights, and then after the highlights are done, all I have to really do is just finish the base off with a little texture, and then this model is going to be done. All right, so first one I'll do is the Stormhost Silver. We're going to do a few of that. So I'm just going to put just a little bit on my palette here. We're going to water it down a little bit with just a little bit of water from my pot here, just so it kind of runs fairly smooth. So for this, what I want to do is really I'm going to concentrate on some of these gear parts right in here. Just give it a little bit of a dab on that gear there. Let's see, maybe just a little bit around the tops of these here. And I think that's pretty much all I'm going to do for in here. Just a little bit there on top of those little nubs there. All right, so that's good for that side. I'm going to do pretty much the same exact thing on this side. Just touch that little piston, and just give it a little edge of the brush highlight on these little gears here. I think that's all I really want to do with this Stormhost Silver on those. Other than that, I'm not really sure. Let me get a little bit more water here from my pot. I'm not sure what else I really want to try to pick out. Like I said, this is just me getting a little bit of highlight practice in. I don't really want to, I know there's a ton of top or corner pieces or edge pieces that I could do on these. I don't really want to pick out all of them because I don't really want to take, I mean, I'll be honest, I don't really want to take all the time to do that. So I'm really just going to maybe look around and see if there's something else I want to maybe pick out the top of this. I don't know. Nothing really drastic. Maybe I'll just hit this little highlight here on this edge. Something like that. Maybe around this top of these cannons here like that. Alright, let me take a look at the Marine real quick and see what I can maybe pick out on him. I don't know, maybe that top of this thing right here. Maybe a couple little tops of these little corners here. And maybe this gun here. And on the other side I'll do the same thing, just the tops of these little nubs here. All right, I'm going to move on to Eshin Gray now to do a little bit of highlights for the black pieces. This I'm going to keep to a very minimum, I think. I don't want to get too much into highlighting the black. So I just watered it down just a little bit, try to get a nice tip on this. And then really what I'm going to do is just kind of try to get around the top of the cannon here. See, I kind of messed up a little bit there, so I might touch that up with a little of the black after. So top of the cannon there, and inside here this little ridge here, I'm going to try to just get a nice little highlight on here and on the other side of it. Yeah, I think that looks good there. And then maybe right on the back side, I'll give a little bit on this corner there. I actually think that's fine. And then on the Marine itself, I'm going to do the back of the Auspex. I'll do a little hedge highlight there. Maybe on the tops of these things here. And then maybe like a little bit on the tops of these rockets here, or bombs, whatever you want to call them. Just a little, it's a little touch. And maybe just on the top of this little emblem here. And then possibly right here. I think that's good. Algar Blue is the next one. So this I'm going to be a little bit more for a highlight than I did with the other previous two colors. But I'm also going to try my hardest to not put too much of it on each area or each spot. So let me go with the cannon first. This I'm really just going to do some edge there, like that, and then very little bit kind of coming down the side there, inside, something like that. That looks good. I don't know if you can see it, sorry. Like that. That looks pretty good. Get a little bit on the brush, and then maybe just on the back side here. All right, and then what I'll do is just a hint, very little bit on that top tracking light or light post or whatever you want to call this little thing. You gotta try to remember to get this in the shot here. I'm trying to get it closer so I can see it, and I'm trying to taking it out of the video shot. Still learning to paint and still learning the video, I guess. I think that's pretty good for that. So on the Marine, I'm gonna probably do just a little bit less, because there's so many spots that I can probably pick out here, but I really want to just hit the ones that are most prominent, right? So like the front of the hands, front of the knuckles, you know, spots like that. That's too much. Let's see if I can take some of that off. There we go. I'm gonna try to get some off the brush here. It looks like I got a little red there from when I was painting his helmet. I didn't even notice that. I'll try to touch that up with a little McCrag blue as well after. What else? That's a tough one, because if I go too much, then it'll look kind of weird if I don't do enough, and back and forth. bit on the backpack here. I'm gonna focus here. I think that's all. I really want to get too much into it. Alright, Evil Sun Scout's next. I put just a dab of it on the palette there. A little water from the pot. Get that kind of flowing good. This paint will be very minor on the spots that I'm going to do. I'm really just going to probably do just the edges of his gun here. Or not gun, I'm sorry, his little arm clamps, we'll say. Front of his helmet, just a touch. Ooh, that's more than a touch. See, this is the practice part, right? I'm not good at it, and the only way I'm going to get better is if I keep trying to do a little bit of it. And maybe just on the top pieces of the flamer, just pronounced any light. Alright, I think that's good enough for me. We are good to go with the base now, the texture base. So what I did was I just used some regular Elmer's PVA glue, put it down on the top part of the base, moved it around to get all the spots here, and then I just kind of put this sand on top of it, and I let that dry, and then I did a DIY brown wash that I create, and I just laid it on top of it to darken it up. So pretty much the only thing now left to do is the base edge, the base rim here. And for my Space Marines, I usually do a Steel Legion drab. So I already got some of that on my palette. I'm just going to water it down a little bit with my water pot. And then for this base, I'm just going to put two coats of this on, and then this guy's going to be all done. So yeah, I mean, pretty much that was the whole process that I followed along from that first picture that I showed on this video of painting up a Space Marine Thunderfire Cannon. Alright, so let me go ahead and finish putting this base, this coat on for the rim, and I'll let that dry. I'll put on a second coat, and then I'll come back here and give you the final view of the finished model. And here is the finished model. The Space Marine Thunderfire Cannon that I did up in the paint scheme of the Ultramarines. I think it came out very well. I'm pretty happy with the highlights that I did. So I think this is going to be the completion of this one. I appreciate everybody stopping by and taking a look, and we will see you next time.